we'll start with the opening prayers, the recitations book. Nathan can read.
All mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the state of the most perfect and precious Buddhahood. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind.
Senchen tamche dewa dhanen dunya dandra nerdu lana me payam dabar zobe chanju rinpoche dobara jala dhamma jebe dra nobar jebe ge karbada tamche gembe bardu chopra jepa tham jeki so jebe manam kada Senchen tamche dewa dan dunya dandar nerdu lana me bayang habar zobe chanchu rinpoche tobar jala jebe dra nobar jebe ge karbadan tamche gembe bardu chopra jepa tham jeki so jebe manam kadan tamche dewa dan dunya dandra nerdu lana me payang gabra zobe chanju rinpoche dobara de sama gigi bardu lunga gisamge wala ko mashe bardu lunga gisamge wala ko du dering ne sunte ni ma samta samgi bardu lunga gisamge wala ko.
In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. May all mothers, sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion.
Sanje chuda soki chunamla chanchu pardu dharni kyapsu chi dagi chinso kipe sonam ki chola penche sangye chuprasho sangye chudan soki chunamla chanchu pardu dharni kyapsu chi dagi jinso gibe sonam gi drola penche sangye chuprasho sangye chodan sogi chornam la chanchu bardu dani kyapsu chi dagi jinso gibe sonam gi drola penche sangye chuprasho nanga dan nyambe senchen damche dewa Dewe girdan dembar girchi dungyao dam dungyao gi gyudan rewa girchi dungyao mepe dewa dami rewa girchi dering chatam nidang gawe tamyon la dembar girchi che dewa dang dewe gidan dembara gyuchi dunyao dang dunyao gi gyudan gawa gyuchi dunyao mepe dewa dami gawa gyuchi niding chada nidang gawe tamyan la nebara gyuchi Kadam Yambe Senchen Tamche Dewa Dang Dewe Gidan Dembar Gyurchi Dungyao Dang Dungyao Gi Gyudan Gawa Gyurchi Dungyao Mepe Dewa Dami Gawa Gyurchi Niring Chadam Nidang Gawe Kamyo La Nebra Gyurchi.
So we will begin this morning. First, with a brief practice of the Tara known as Panashavari, the wilderness dweller, the one clad in leaves, the medicine woman. So yesterday I talked about this particular aspect of Tara. So right now we will focus on this and do especially her mantra with the thought, with the aspiration that the spread of disease and epidemics that have arisen due to all sorts of negative karma, basically, is the distant course. The distant meaning, further in the background. The immediate cause, the material, I would say, material causes that can be scientists and researchers can figure out and tell us what sorts of mutations give rise to viruses, diseases that human beings have no natural defense for. But we say behind that, there is the results of negative karma. Then, if you open the Vajrayana explanations, in between the karma and the material causes, the distant cause and the proximate cause. If you open the Vajrayana, and then, for example, Tibetan medicine, which is based on Vajrayana, or at least one major influence on Tibetan medicine is Vajrayana. There are causes that are called literally, the Tibetan word dun is demons, malevolent energy or forces, sits in between in terms of thinking about causation, between karmic causation, material causation. Then there's something else, as they say, in between these two that is fueling or energizing the material causes. So that's a typical Vajrayana kind of understanding. They say looking below the surface and more below the surface and more below the surface. However, I think you choose to conceive of this. The main point of this practice, I think, is to as His Holiness the Drigum Gyabgun, when he gave this practice, says, it is necessary that you do this with the motivation of kindness and compassion. So, with kindness and compassion, we do this now. Let's see this. If you read in English.
From the mandala of Dharmakaya's great bliss, you protect against dangerous diseases like epidemics and so forth, and the karma of untimely death. I pay homage to you, mother of wish-fulfilling activities. You, golden-colored wilderness dweller on a lotus base, your main face is golden, right blue, and left white. Your hair is bound up in a top knot, and you are full of splendor. I pay homage to the divine exalted body of the goddess granting accomplishments. You, Bhagavati, are the embodiment of wisdom and compassion. You stand in the midst of masses of fire, burning like at the end of an eon. With your 3 faces and 6 arms, you look terrifyingly wrathful. I pay homage to you whose one leg is stretched and the other bent. Wilderness dweller with exalted body clad in leaves, brandishing bow and arrow, battle axe and a bundle of leaves, showing the threatening mudra and holding a vajra. O Sharvari, I pay homage to you, great mother, protectress of beings.
Om Pisashi Parnashavari Sarvamari Prashamani Om Pisachi 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 Parnashavari Saji Parna Shavari Sarvamari Prashamani Om Saji Parna Shavari Sarvamari Prashamani Om Saji Parna Shavari Sarvamari Prashamani Om Saji Parna Shavari Sarvamari Prashamani
By the power of this virtue, may I swiftly accomplish Panasharvari and establish all migratory beings without exception in that very same state. Varnashravali has more than one form given in the various texts. The most common one has her 3 faces, 6 arms. But there's also 1 face, 2 arms, 1 face, 4 arms, red in color, black in color, blue, black in color. But the more common one is 3 faces, 6 arms. Body and principal face golden or yellow. Here golden or yellow might have something to do, although I've not actually seen it stated this way. To say that I've not seen it simply means I've not seen it. Tibetan material is unimaginable how much texts and traditions they have produced on top of what they receive, from India. But the yellow here, I think, is related to the earth element, and related to the herbs that grow from the earth. So she's yellow golden, her main body, her main face. Then in this tradition it says her right face is blue and left is white. If you Google, you'll see a different one where I think the right is white and the left is red. And so there are variant traditions that you should be aware of. Anyway, in this, they're all embodying that quality, that universal aspect, principle. So in this case, blue and white. Then often, again, there are variations. The text maybe are not exactly clear, but they will have her kind of tilting her head a little, so that the blue is looking up, and then the white is looking down. So this blue face is similar to the color of space, sky. So the blue face is sort of signifying that, as the praise says, at the beginning it says, from the mandala of Dharmakaya's great bliss. So Dharmakaya is the unchanging, unmoving, birthless, innate state of the natural, pristine nature of all things. So from within that space, so the blue in looking up is reminding us that she doesn't depart from that state of being, because it's not possible to depart from that, even if you tried. So not only is it not possible not only does she not depart from there, but what makes her, her, and you and me, you and me, is that her and others like her, not only do they not depart from that state of being, because it is how things are, but they have not lost sight of that fact. We have. See, the difference between Buddhists and the difference between Buddha, meaning awake, and Buddha -1 all the way down, is between realizing and not losing sight at all of that pristine nature and falling from that. So anyway, her blue face, you can think, it's pointing to, it's reminding this the Dharmakaya state. Then her white face, looking downwards this way. White is the color of pacifying, cooling down, causing the inflammation to calm down, calming down, cooling down, pacifying. So prashamani, which is related to prashanti, is to pacify. And so her white face looking downwards, meaning then looking towards all those who have forgotten their pristine nature, therefore, experiencing all kinds of confusions and sufferings in all sorts of levels and shades. She's pacifying their suffering. So that's then her 6 arms. First 2 on the right, she holds a vajra. The vajra is the symbol of this indestructible mind, nature of mind, indestructible nature of mind. When vajra turns up together with the bell, then vajra is this indestructible compassion. Bell is wisdom. But when vajra stands alone, then it's a symbol of the indestructible nature of mind. So she's holding that. And that then is said to have the power to destroy, to smash into pieces. Vajra is in ancient India, the king of the gods had this weapon called a vajra. And it's said to be indestructible, whereas it can destroy everything. So that's vajra. Then her left hand, she's holding a lasso with this gesture, this mudra called threatening. Threatening. This is the threatening. So when you threaten people, you do this. So she holds this threatening, kind of her ability to threaten all these causes of disease. Her next 2 hands holds on the right an axe. An axe that will chop into pieces these causes of disease. On the left side is a branch of healing leaves. Leaves.
Healing.
A bunch full of healing leaves. So the healing leaves on the left hand and the battle axe on the right hand, these are the 2 modes of healing. Surgery, like really, you might even think of as intrusive interventions, and then softer intervention. You can think of it that way. So she's well equipped. Then the 3rd pair of hands is bow and arrow. And so bow is the bow of compassion, an arrow of wisdom. So it's with compassion that wisdom can be launched in an effective way. So bow and arrow that she holds. She wears these leaves, these healing leaves, these as her clothing, a skirt, an upper jacket, all woven from leaves. How she stands or sits is often in the paintings kind of awkward. You might want to do something before something explodes. Some buzzing. Bad connection or something. Might have to turn off. Yeah, so how she's painted seated or standing is kind of awkward. And if you look on the internet, she's this really awkward, you know. In Tibetan it says kyang kum. Kyang kum is saying that she. I don't think so. Kyang kum is meaning one leg in and the other out. As to how they imagine one leg in and the other out is it seems to depend on the artist. Many that I've seen is a little convoluted. This kyang kum. The text also not very clear whether she's depicted seated or standing. I don't think that matters so much. But if you want, you can visualize her now standing. It's a little dire. If you feel a little dire, maybe have her standing, you know. If you feel like, you know, it's not yet, you know, panic button, you know, then you can have her seated, you know. And then if like it's really like, then maybe, you know, you can have her dancing, you know. So the one stretch and one seated, one's extended and one pulled in, it symbolizes actually movement. That's why I think it doesn't matter as much. Sometimes the deity is like both legs are in the Vajra posture, which we call it somehow lotus. In the ancient text it's called Vajra, in the Vajra position. So Vajra unmoving. They're locked. Full lotus, what we call. So this unmoving, this locked, is basically, it then symbolizes a very stable meditative state. So like White Tara, you know, in full lotus or Vajra position, unmoving. So in that case, you know, I think when we're given instructions related to like that kind of position, then you don't want to kind of modify unless there's some reason. Then you meditate as unmoving, because what's emphasized is there is unmoving. When it says kyang kum, that means one leg stretch and the other pulled in. It's telling us that it's moving, or the deity is moving. Even seated and moving in the sense like Tara, it's like 1 foot forward. So it's saying, you know, she's not just seated in unmoving meditation, she's active. She's active. Oh, in full disclosure, lots of phlegm. Whether it is or it is not, you can look at the symptoms. Lots of phlegm. Translation, not dry cough.
Yeah.
Lots of phlegm.
Do you have an elephant on your chest yet? That's a good sign.
Full disclosure, I've had a dry cough for 2 years. It is not.
Now we know where this all came from.
Patient one.
It's been percolating for the last 2 years. You go to.
Are we going around?
I have some stuff I need.
Public confessions.
I will call today, folks, do not worry.
Have a coffee.
Dr. Lai,
Yes.
the face looking down symbolized what?
White color? What's white color for?
Purity, clarity,
Sure. Pacification.
Calm.
Calming, soothing, cooling down.
What's the blue for? The blue face. Oh, he aggressive. Listen to the.
You gotta go back and listen, you know.
If she's red, looking up, same
I have no idea. I'm only commenting on.
blue.
I'm only commenting on, you know, what appears in the text that we have. And even that, I said, you know, I have not seen enough text
You're right.
to tell me that the texts are not explicit.
That's fine.
I'm giving you an educated guess. That's really my bottom line to this whole part.
We're past it.
As to all the other variations, I'm sorry, you have to go speculate yourself. It's good to be flexible and to know the reason why I tell you all of this is that people get very tight, you know, because and part of it is the result of, I think, people like me who present this material, who introduce this material. On the one hand, we give so seemingly, you know, so much details, so much precision. And then you walk out there and then, you know, we're no longer in the days where, you know, we live in villages in Tibet or wherever. You know, wherever someone who seems to have a lot of information gives you something, that's the version that you're going to be with until the end of your life. Then it's pretty easy to just, you know, go, what about? Now instantly you go on the internet, you know, you see 7 other variations, and you get all panicky. You know. But what about this? But what about that? How about this? And then how about that? Right? Most teachers, I think, will just say, do what I told you. Not quite my style, for good or for bad. I just say, well, here's where this stands, and you're going to encounter a bunch of other things, but in the bigger picture, here's how it looks. I don't want to give you fish, you know, hoping to teach how to fish. It will take longer to get the hang of it, but in the bigger picture, I feel this is a better approach. Don't have much confidence anymore in the approach of just do what I say, because people are exposed to all kinds of information. You know? You can just say, well, it's this way, and this is what you have to trust. Well, yeah, but again, how long is that going to last? I'm not sure. So I would rather show you the bigger picture to the degree that I can. And what I'm saying, I guess, now is that you need to have patience to know that this is what this method is. To train you, hopefully, or to offer this training, whether you want to be trained or not, it's up to you. To offer you the possibility of being trained to see the bigger picture, so that in every specific scenario, even if you don't know all the exact details of it, based on understanding the bigger principle, yeah, you can come to some conclusions about what you're looking at. So once again, if you are joining us from afar, maybe just down the road, but there there's good reason right now to stay where you are. But do so knowing that this will keep everybody good and safe, yourself and others. Don't open the window of panic, which is often social media, that often. Don't contribute to that window. Everyone I can guarantee you on social media that you know of is exactly forwarding the things that you are forwarding. So exactly who is the audience is unclear now. When there is a fire in the theater, we figure out how to get people out. We do not cause a trampling of people trying to go out, but end up going nowhere in particular. So do not invite in more fear, and do not accidentally, unintentionally create more of a fear. Don't forget, if you're in the northern hemisphere, don't forget, life is shooting out of the ground right now. Take time to pay attention to that, to see that. Green shoots are pushing out of the ground. Flowers are blooming. Very soon in this area, dogwood will be blooming. Birds are chirping. There are sunsets to be seen and sunrise to be enjoyed. There's a lot of things going on as well. Don't forget to take time to pay attention to that. As practitioners of the Dharma, this is a time where we apply the mind training teachings, especially, even more than I would say, if I chant this mantra, wear that mandala, do this, do that, it will protect. To the degree it helps to allay your fears, to pacify your being triggered, do rely on those things. But more importantly, you have to safeguard your heart by taking the Dharma to heart. Good time for intensifying your practice. Time for retreat. There's a lot of Dharma available on the internet. YouTube has so much wonderful teachings from wonderful teachers. Go watch that. You have Netflix or Hulu or Amazon subscription. When you get exhausted or tired watching Dharma, then go binge on some series, even better than, way better than social media. Then there are books to be read. New Yorkers to give your love to. Yeah, both the people who live there and the magazine called New Yorker. If you live in the North Carolina area, and wherever you live locally, but particularly I want to call your attention to, if you live in the local area in North Carolina, in this region, we forwarded a plea for help from the biggest food bank in our area called Manna Food Bank. They are calling attention to the great need that has arisen right now. In this region, 40,000 students receive free lunch at school. Now school has been called off for the next 2 weeks at least, if not more than that. So these 40,000 students who normally get free meals, that burden instantly has now switched back to their parents. And parents who probably, if in the first place, they need help with the lunch meals, are probably in situations where economically, with everything that is going on, they are on the front lines of being hit by the lack of income. So this is doubling the burden, tripling the burden. So if you can, please help support the donations. Cash donations is best probably right now. There's an easy link you can click. We have shared it on the Urban Dharma North Carolina site. Do what you can do locally. So if you're watching from elsewhere, be aware of this issue. I'm sure your local food bank is gearing up to figure out how to help at this time. So this is the time to step up, help your neighbors, known and unknown, help your community. This is what we can do. We also put up, a link on, there was a notice of how, if you want to donate to Urban Dharma, what you can do. Urban Dharma is 100% volunteer. Nobody gets paid here. But there are bills to pay, true. But right now, I even want to say this. If you feel that you have only enough to give one place, please give to the food bank. We are not yet, Urban Dharma, we're not wealthy, but we're not yet at a point where it's dire. But food banks right now, with so many areas closing schools, this lunches is going to have a real problem. So if you can help, please look around wherever you are and try to get the word out there as well. That's the kind of help that we can do. Yes?
There's a local restaurant, I think more of them are going to do this. If you go Monday through Friday with your kid, Duck Taco, they're doing a special where you get one free taco for the kid every time you go in there during the school hours.
Yeah, I'm sure lots of restaurants are trying to figure out different efforts like that. But at the same time, parents are concerned about taking people out. It's anyway, the food banks, I think, are trained, are more ready to really help and put things in place. And they have a network of effectively distributing food. I think in this particular effort in Manna is that the schools have actually come up with something about families being able to pick up from the school. I think there's some sort, I did not read all the details, but I'm sure every area have things like that going on. So yesterday, we talked about, I emphasized that, whenever we hear like Phowa training, Phowa teachings, Phowa transmission, I think most people are thinking immediately of the specific meditation, the specific technique, the specific know-how, the specific meditation, how to do. And in fact, yes, there's a lot of details of that sort. And in case you're waiting and waiting and waiting out there, I can say to you, we're not really going to go into that. Because in some ways it's not appropriate. That is something that you have to learn and receive the transmission in person. Yes, there might be different opinions regarding that, right? But at the end, it's the comfort level of the person teaching. So I can tell you, I'm not comfortable putting it out there. Oh, you do this, you do this, you do this. So, yes, so I'm not confident enough, I'm not powerful enough to put that kind of information out there and make it a DIY. So this weekend, the program was never intended to serve as a formal transmission. But at the same time, I like yesterday, if you were participating yesterday, hopefully you got, that as much as Phowa involves those types of detailed instructions and very specific instructions on how to kind of train so that your consciousness is raised, like quite literally raised to the top part of your body, and how it can leave through the top of your head according to this technique. That doesn't really happen. This is a good one. His Holiness the Dalai Lama says, one time I saw somewhere he talked about, he said, people talk about Phowa and often even looking for physical signs of success of Phowa, because they do tell about these signs. And one of it involves like, you practice this so much that the opening, the soft opening at the top, what do you call this? Fontanelle? Yeah? When you're a baby, this is soft, this spot. And then as your cranium, right, begins to develop and grow, then it fills in, it's no longer soft. But that point there, when you do these Phowa visualization practice, like for 10 days in a row, like many sessions, eventually this kind of becomes sore. Yeah, that's how, it just becomes sore, and even a slight opening. Of course, that fascinates people to no end, right? And then there is a little opening that you can insert a grass. So hence the title of the Drigunkagyu Phowa is called Planting the Stalk, or a standing blade of grass, or planting the stalk, a stalk of grass. So if you, again, Google enough, you can see pictures of people at the end of a Phowa retreat, and then they all have like this grass, standing on their heads. I heard one story, I don't know if it's true or not, like they even, like, at the end of this retreat, like they left walking around like that, and I thought that's a little too much, Anyway, understandably, there's a lot of fascination. Oh, wow. And then there's also a lot of peer pressure. If you're in a retreat and it says, we do not end this retreat until everybody's, we could stick a grass on everyone's fontanelle or head, Anyway, there's lots of things like that, And His Holiness Dalai Lama, he says, like, yes, that could happen, that happens, people talk about it, he says, but I can tell you there's no guarantee that when the time of death comes, it can go to the right place. You can go to the right place. He says, this is just physical stuff that is going on. If you focus enough on something, yeah, you can bring about that result, but he says, look at your mind. The mind is still very much tethered to sensory experiences as your definition of who you are, tethered to this life, this body, this existence. You could surgically create a hole here. It's not going to ensure successful birth in Amitabha's pure life. That really comes from renunciation, right? The will, the desire, the aspiration to not be entangled. That's the pushing factor. Pulling factor. Amitabha, or the Buddha's compassion. Buddha's compassion is always there. Like those radio waves. So what can we do? Tune into, adjust our bandwidth, right? So that you are in sync with where the waves are. So devotion. Devotion. So they say, the Buddha's hook of compassion is always, out there, looking to hook. But who gets hooked in? Only those with devotion that is a perfect ring can be hooked in. If this ring has a gap, it might hook, some distance, and then again the hook goes out. So we have to close this gap, this ring of devotion. Then the hook of compassion can effectively hook all the way to the pure life. Devotion to these Buddha qualities, to this state that is free from confusion, the love and compassion and the power of the Buddhas, that we need to know these qualities. And so these two parts. So before we continue, questions from yesterday, maybe last night you were thinking and thinking and thinking.
Does the Tibetan tradition emphasize very much the idea of the middle way? It's very emphasizing.
What do you mean by middle way?
Like I was thinking yesterday, this discussion between, for instance, they're pushing and being pulled, and having both of those, or like the kind of, the resolve and renunciation to go, but also the resolve
sure.
to be
Yeah,
here.
of course. Don't use middle way. Don't use that.
Okay.
It's a very specific reference in Madhyamaka.
Right.
It's like Madhyamaka and Phowa. What?
Right.
You mean balance?
Yeah.
In Buddhist talk, middle way is not about balance. Yes.
I'm not quite sure how to ask this question, but I'll try. Is there a time?
Most of what's going on is, figuring out how to ask the question, so it's okay. Most of what's going on is not even the answer.
Yeah,
Yeah. So for all of us, the answer is just an excuse.
to figure out the question.
Yeah. Once you figure out the questions very clearly, everything becomes clear. So the actual training is figuring out how to ask questions. Yeah. So yeah.
Well, I'm trying to keep to what we talked about yesterday, and yet because I'm faced with this a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a time, generally, to have that mindset and walk every day, thinking of the things that you discussed with Phowa and your enunciation and thinking about death but actually, when you're at a certain time of dying, or I was thinking, we were talking about those steps, and if you are actually, know that you have a disease, all of a sudden out of nowhere, and you've already been somewhat, in a way, practicing this mental attitude, this awareness, do you up it? Because all of a sudden there's this panic that you're dealing with, accepting what is inevitably coming your way. You're dying sooner than you ever imagined, so you're facing all the issues of what, when, and where, and the fear of that. But keeping this mindset of Phowa and the awareness that we talked about.
Yeah, so I don't know if there's a question there, but it's a very good description of how it's going to happen.
Well, I see it.
Yeah, and so we should know that. Yeah, you're thinking, you're learning about this, you're meditating. Then eventually the time will come, and then you're told by the doctor or told by someone or yourself this is it, and when that happens, panic or fear or what would arise, and then you will know, is dharma in the system or not. Yeah. Yes.
The consciousness, awareness, where it goes, seems to be one thing, and then there's what we're doing to help direct it with our physical body, what we're able to actually prepare for that moment. So my question is, how much of the intention, desire, and conviction is actually in the mind stream that's being ejected or transmitted, and if we practice and if we develop mind control, are we able to have more control over what happens to that consciousness and awareness after we leave the body?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the whole point of practice. Otherwise, if you can't, then there's no training to do. Yeah, absolutely. And then again, like yesterday I said, sometimes we use mind, consciousness. Basically, we're talking about you. Right. Too much of technical use of technical, which is important, but also don't forget, when they say transference of consciousness, it's basically, it says, where are you going? Where are you going to go? When it's time to go. Where are you going to go? So this is a training for where do I want to go? So according to this specific Phowa, where you want to go is Amitabha's Pure Land. The road that you will take is said to be the details that are given in the specific meditation. To consider the central channel as the passage that you're going to take. And as for the traveler, it says it's your consciousness. Again, take away the technical term. You in the form of a visualized object. Again, given in the details of the Phowa practice. And so to habituate. So that is at the, as you would phrase it, the mind control level, as in training, harnessing the mind to think in terms of what is the passage? The passage is the central channel. What does the passenger look like? It looks like this, it looks like that, right? It's not saying, to me, it's not saying that exactly that is what it is. But it is saying you train your mind to see it that way. Because how you see it at the time when death is unfolding matters. You know what I'm saying? It's not literally, it doesn't have to literally say, it doesn't have to literally mean that there is a central channel inside this body. I mean, if you take it that literally, you're like, okay, let's cut a body. Oh, wait a minute, where the heck is the central channel? You know, it's not there, right? But no, it's not there in that way, you know? But it's a method, it's a technique. So as you lay there dying, right, and you know, where am I going? You know, like those thoughts, right? Where am I going? Is everything going to be okay? If you have trained this, then you're like, well, I'm going to Amitabha's Pure Land, right? Then, of course, it's sort of like these are like the hooks I talked about yesterday, you know, Vajrayana meets you where you are. So the next thing might be, well, how do I get there? It's like, well, from within yourself, because it said, like all this while you have trained to see, well, the road is within, because that central channel is within you, right? You say, okay, well, the road is within, you know, so it's not like I need to get somewhere, you know, take me to, you know, Varanasi, take me to Makkah, take me to Kailash, take me to, you know, Bodh Gaya before I can get there, before I can ascend from there. It's like, no, the road is within you because the central channel is within your body. And like, how do I go? Well, now, you know, look for that object that during Phowa training you have been training to see, and know that that's where you are now, and go from there. Yeah, it's doing that. Those all the details of the practice is working that way. So that on the level where, and again, you know, you have to be, I think, like, so ordinarily how people react, how people receive the news that, you know, death is coming soon, all of that. Yeah, I mean, for us, probably we'll go through all those stages. But in going through all the stages, again, if you're a Dharma practitioner, that is the time, you know, to harness everything, to bring in and to start working on it, you know. Now, I have not gone through that in this life, so I don't know how successful it will be, if that's the question. If you outlive me, then, you know, write something and tell other people. Come observe and take notes, yes.
So I had a question.
Yes.
So I know some people here took the Phowa, the long initiation, and so they know what this object is and what to transfer, but some of us maybe have mixed instructions from past retreats or teachers. So just a shortcut, like if it was next week that we were facing death, those of us that don't have the full instruction, is it connecting to Amitabha, visualizing Amitabha?
Yeah, there are so many methods, you know. Phowa is not the only method. And then there's also many types of Phowa, which we'll look at today. You know, It's not like, you know, hey, hey, I have the instructions. Good luck. The principles that we're talking about right now, that's what you can apply with or without specific methods and transmissions and all of that, you know. It's that in the East Asian tradition, and in fact, it's quite simple. Korea, Japan, you know, China, Taiwan, you know, like chant Amitabha's name. That's all you need to do. And so there they totally focus on, you know, renunciation mind, desire to be born in Amitabha's land. And then Amitabha says, those who say my name will reach.
Jesus.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Amitofo, you know. That's a greeting, in fact. You know? People greet each other. It's so pervasive, the name of Amitabha. In the East Asian Buddhism, we go to the temple, we sign off emails even now, everything is Amitofo. We greet each other with Amitofo. Yeah, Amitabha. But Amito is Chinese and Fo is Buddha. Amitofo. Yeah. We sign up emails with Amitofo, we greet people with Amitofo, we say goodbye with Amitofo. Yeah. Everything, you know, it's like aloha.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The East Asian Buddhist aloha is Amitofo. Yeah. Amitofo. Yeah. We'll call someone, hey, Sishong, Amitofo. And then, you know, Sishong is like, brother, Dharma brother. You know. And if you call, hey, Dharma brother, they turn around, Amitofo. You know, it's like a greeting. So that is like in the system. Ben, you had a question.
Yeah. I was thinking about the text we went over from yesterday.
The Abhaya Sutta that we went over yesterday. Yes.
I was thinking about the third example of somebody
Regarding actions.
Yes.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering if that has to do if it's somebody thinking about their conduct, or if it's more about how their conduct has shaped where their mind is at the
Both.
moment that-
Both. It's somebody thinking about their conduct, and it's how conduct has shaped their mind.
Mhm.
Right? They're not separated.
Mhm.
You cannot conduct yourself in one way and then at the end go, ah, yeah, good or bad, you know. Your conduct throughout your life shapes your thoughts. And also your thoughts throughout your life shape your conduct. But as you lay there dying, right? Practically speaking, conduct ceases, but thoughts don't. So you're either comforted or tortured by your thoughts as you lay there dying. So that's why there the emphasis is, say, you know, your thoughts. Because right there, you know, you're not, you know, practically speaking, doing anything but, you know, with your thoughts. It's both.
Oh, and that even just not being confident in the law of karma, like in so much as there will be results for my actions.
Yes.
I wonder what that's gonna
Right,
cumulative effect
right,
that
right.
would be.
So that's such
So
an
even-
interesting,
Yeah.
the way the Buddha phrased it there, you know. You're like, you know, insofar that this is going to have something on the other side, yeesh. But if you're in that state, you know, like, insofar as there's going to be, I have no regrets. I have done well. I have done what I need to do. I have been good to others. So if there is, I'm fine. That has to be clear.
Is that like saying you're fine with what comes? Because you're kind of still.
No, this is anchored on knowing that I have done well. I think the Buddha will not go so far as say, you know, like, oh, it will be fine. He's giving this to those of us who are healthy, alive right now, and saying, you engage in more virtue, so that when the time comes, then you can say, what comes is fine. Yeah?
But what people ask me a lot, clients, they may have that consciousness as an adult, but they've done things, they realize that they learn more about suffering, how much suffering they had actually created in their lifetime. And they worry about what to do with that.
That's
How
different.
that-
That's different from this text.
Okay.
That I'll talk about later.
Okay.
Then when you have to help others who is dying, that's a different question. Yeah. Here, this is given to, you're healthy right now. So you don't wait until, you're dying to regret your actions. You shape up now.
Yeah.
He really wants you to do that, the Buddha. You shape up now. Yeah? And don't count on, that's the other part. Don't count on, when the time comes, I'll surround myself with all the holy things, all the good things, It's a story, this is from the Hindu tradition, some guy, he heard, one of the Hindu gurus saying, giving a teaching on at your last moment as you're passing, if you think of God, if you say God's name, you will reach God, Then he thought, okay. So with the birth of the first child, it's like, you are called Krishna. With the birth of the second child, like you are called Shiva. With the third, you are called Ram, With the fourth, you are called Shakti, It's like, well, when I die, probably I'll be surrounded by them, So I'll be calling out, Krishna, Ram, Shiva, Shakti, Then when the time comes, Krishna! Oh, I don't think I should leave that much for Krishna. It's, it's kind of not very nice to me. I'll give it to Ram. But Ram doesn't have that many kids, Actually, Shakti needs maybe more. So his strategy didn't work, Strategy didn't work. It's another funny. So this is what we'll talk about today. There's also an emphasis on the psychology of in the last moment is important. Yeah, so we will talk about that. But there's another story. It's so imagine, so the two, Shiva and Shakti, so this is from the Hindu tradition, So they're watching an accident unfolding, in slow motion. So freeze everything, going in slow motion. So Shiva and Shakti says, so which one of us should intervene? Some guy is falling off a cliff. Okay. So they're like, so which one of us should intervene? So then Shiva said, well, let's see who he calls out. So if he says Appa, which means like addressing Shiva, then I will go. If he says Amma, then you go. And so Shiva and Shakti say, okay, unslow it down, let it happen. And then it's happened, and so they're waiting, and the guy goes, yeah, plus splat. He did not call Appa, did not call Amma, he just shouted out in terror, Ayah! And Shiva and Shakti goes, oh well. Little humor there.
Yeah.
There's also another updated one. It's like, someone again, falling from the sky. I don't know how he fell from the sky, And So as he's falling, he goes, Amitofo, 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 and then so suddenly there's a hand holding him, and then he stops falling, and it goes like slowly, slowly, and he's like, oh, thank God, splat.
Oh.
Gotcha.
It sounds funny, all of that, it's obviously made up as a joke, but you can also say, like the absurdity of thinking, it's this or that God or Buddha, whatever we call out to, and the arbitrariness of it. Again, let's look behind, right, the underlying principle of what we're working on for this. If you ask me, that's yes.
To address Ben's point, I think the key.
You have to speak loud.
Oh yeah. I'd like to address Ben's point. I think the key in the 7-limb work of the second one is confession. So if you get it, everybody's done bad things in their life. The key is to clear everything and try to purify everything before this moment comes. And that's with confession and remorse for anything you've done which is not good and harmful.
Yeah, absolutely.
That can be done now.
And that's the practice. That's what we do. Yeah. So now, before we start, the next one I want to talk about briefly is this section found in the 7-point lojong that I think many of you are familiar with. The 4th point is talking about how do we look at this whole method of like training the mind, lojong tradition. If you were to summarize what you have to do throughout your lifetime when you're alive, and also summarize it in terms of then when death when you're actively dying, what you should do. It says rely on what's known as the 5 powers. So after this break, we'll look at the 5 powers. And that again will inform us on what are we talking about when we talk about Phowa. Phowa has all these other aspects that I think usually is not very much highlighted, that I feel is necessary if we are to really effectively go where we want to go when the time comes. So we'll take a big break right now, and then for you watching on Facebook, then there'll be another video that will pop up in like 10-15 minutes.